I suspect we all underappreciate how important audio is in all forms and formats.
Well, if people are listening to us right now, it's all about the effort we put into delivering a good program with good sound.
Yeah, and I think we do a pretty good job. So today we're going to delve into that topic with someone that knows a lot about making the human voice sound great.
Film, TV, and podcasts all heavily rely on sound engineers. This episode will give us a glimpse of what goes on behind the scenes.
Hi, everyone. Hope you've been having a wonderfully creative week. I'm Rod Jones, and we celebrate what people love to do creatively by giving them a voice so you can learn and be motivated from their life's experiences.
And I'm Angie Jones. Welcome to Thought Road Podcast. We invite you to subscribe wherever you listen, and we focus on sharing with everyone how they can think, be, and live more creatively.
Okay, Angie, I happen to know who our guest is today, but why don't you tell our listeners who she will be? Okay,
well, today we are going to be speaking with Henry Willard, and he is a freelance film, TV, voiceover, and dubbing engineer. He has recorded for Disney, Netflix, AppleTV, Starbucks, and a whole bunch more brands that we all know and love.
And I have to also mention that Henry is a really good guy.
He is.
He's very, very genuine, very nice. But I'm anxious to see how you're going to come up with a quote that's going to go with this episode.
Well, it wasn't easy because there's not a lot of quotes about audio or engineering or things like that. But here's a quote that kind of applies, I think, to what's going on. And here it is. The bottom line is that your performance is made in the editing room. And that quote is by Brent Sexton. And in case you don't know who Brent is, you might remember him from the TV show Bosch, Deadwood, and the series The Expanse. And he's done a whole bunch of other movies and TV shows and things like that.
Sorry, Brent, I don't think I knew who you were, but that's a good quote.
It's a great quote, and it so applies, I think, to our episode today.
Well, you can really imagine that any performer, an actor or a singer, even people who are doing commercials,
right,
and how much they depend upon the audio engineer to record their voice faithfully. It can make or break a production.
Yes. After all, some people are better known for their voice than who they are in person.
Yeah, like character voices, right?
Yeah.
Even if someone's voice is, you recognize it in a TV commercial, and there have been voices just like that.
Or a video game, right?
Oh, yeah, video game.
Yeah.
The sound engineer is the person who makes it sound amazing.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's introduce our guest. But first, I know you have an important message for our listeners.
Yes, I do. You know, we have been reluctant in the past to come right out and ask everyone. But if you are listening to this podcast, can you please do us a little favor by helping us out? On our website, we have added a feature where you can help support the podcast. It's called Buy Me a Cup of Coffee. You just scroll down on the thoughtroad.com website and you will see the button where it says Buy Me a Cup of Coffee. And there you can donate as little as $1 to help us with our podcast. And they take all currencies, so you don't have to worry about that. And we will use the money to help with production costs and website costs. So please, if you guys enjoy the podcast, give us a little helping hand.
I'm really glad you shared that because I know we've always been reluctant to add commercials to the podcast. But what's good about this one is coming from us.
That's true. And it's just direct. So you know what it's about.
Yeah, sure.
But let's move on to our interview and we will talk with Henry Willard.
Hello, Henry. We're really looking forward to hearing about your creative life as a voice-over and dubbing engineer. This will be a first for us.
It will. Hi, Henry. We're all about audio with our podcast, but when you take audio to engineering to a whole new level.
Hey, Rod. Hey, Angie. Really pleased to connect with you guys today, and really looking forward to having a chat.
Well, it'll be fun for
yes,
everyone.
Definitely.
But before we get into learning about your occupation, which I'm really excited about learning more about it, why don't you tell everyone where you're originally from and where you're living now?
So I am in the UK. I'm in England. I haven't really moved very far. I was born in West Kent, so the county of Kent. We're about an hour south of London. Yes, where I was born and grew up, in a small village. I've since sort of moved in with my partner, and we are probably only about 10 miles or so from where I was born. So
really?
Haven't fled very far.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
When you were growing up, did you have a favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory. You know what really sticks with me? It's the memory of my primary school friends, I think. It's, not necessarily one particular moment or anything like that, but I was, and I still am, sort of quite close with a lot of the friends that I grew up with at that really young age. I think we were all at that time, a lot of us were, we grew up in the same village. It was really close knit. I think even some of us went to like nursery together, at like a super young age. Yeah. And, I've just got really good memories of growing up with these people. And when we were a little bit older, we were still sort of going down the park and playing football during the summer. And those great memories stick with me, I think.
That's so charming and wonderful. It is
an ideal way to grow up and with all your mates there. How fun was that?
Very ideal.
Yeah. And I say, obviously, we're not all super close now, but there's still a nice little core group of friends that we try and sort of meet up once in a blue moon, and that's really nice. And and it's so nice that we go so far back.
Plus, you don't have that far to drive.
That's true.
Exactly. Well, I think a lot of them have moved away, but I don't have to go very far at all.
That's so sweet.
I'll meet you guys down the road. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because it sounds so idyllic and sweet. And I'm so glad that you are able to still connect with your childhood friends. That's so rare these days, and you are so fortunate.
So, I think a lot of other sort of friends I speak to, I think a lot of them sort of stayed in touch with some sort of high school friends and college friends, and it's a little bit more rare, I think.
It is.
Coming across others who are still good friends with those that they went to, what we call primary school with.
Right.
Yeah, from sort of the age of 4 through to 11. But I've got just really good memories of those people. That's great.
So sweet. So sweet. Well, let's move on to our interview now. Now that everyone knows you a little bit better, we know that you are a freelance film, TV voiceover, and dubbing engineer. Share with us what all that means.
Yeah, certainly. So I specialize in recording the voice for TV commercials, animation, TV documentaries, feature films, that sort of thing. And I work freelance, so I can sort of dive into other little areas as well, sort of podcast sound design, localization, sort of foreign language dubbing. It's really exciting, and it's a little bit different.
I have a couple questions about that. One, I'm always interested in sound design, but before I ask you that, tell us about the animation aspect of it. Is that like a cartoon or a video game where you have to lay the audio track in? Yeah,
so it's the work that I've done for animation. I don't think I've done any video game work, but general sort of couple of Disney shows, that sort of thing, that kind of animation. It's recording the voices for characters in these animated programs. So that sort of thing. So some recent stuff that I have worked on. There's an Apple TV Plus animation that came out last year called Wolf Boy and the Everything Factory. So that was September 21 that was released. So yeah, recorded an entire series of character voicing for that.
Interesting.
Yeah, animation's really fun to work on. I'd love to do more. It's, you're bringing something to life, and there's something so cool about that.
What exactly, Henry, what exactly is the process? I mean, what do they provide you, and then you marry the visual and the audio together? For
animation, again, the stuff that I've worked on, the animation is still very much a work in progress. So we've tended to record the voice first, and then we've kind of got we are given sort of scripts. So they've got the general storyline outlined. Usually there are lots of hiccups where there have been script changes, sort of as we get further down the line. Sometimes we'll have sort of drawings of the characters come through, but yeah, I think a lot of the actual animation gets finalized towards the end of the process.
They don't do the animation first; they do the voices first, and then do the animation for the
as far as I'm aware, that seems to be the way that I've tended to have animation.
Interesting. See, I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah. I thought that like the old movies.
Yeah, like the old movies where they sit there with a script and match it.
And they match the voice.
Yeah. Interesting. And you also mentioned something that was really interesting, because I love watching different movies on Netflix that are from other countries. And like for a while, we were watching this Turkish video, that series, and they did the voiceover so perfectly on it, like you couldn't tell, what was going on. It sounded like it was natural. Is that something that you do with that kind of dubbing? It's something
that I am possibly getting more into kind of right now. I've done sort of foreign dubbing for commercials, TV commercials, where I've needed to work on sort of the lip sync side of things, and it's so much more tricky with sort of foreign dubbing, sort of localization, that kind of thing, because you're translating. Say you're translating from English to French. You've got the syllables are all different, and the mouth shapes are all different, and you've got to try and whoever's putting together the scripts, if they've got such a big job on their hands, so just try and get everything within the same sort of time frame.
Yes, words
that still, and phrases that still make sense in the new language, and then try and consider the sort of the mouth shapes as well. It's so tricky. And say, with my experience of sort of foreign TV commercials that have originally been in English,
right,
it is tough, and you can only sort of do the best you can. I think there's only so much you can do, but yeah, it's really great fun. And yeah, I'm just starting to work with a Scandinavian company actually, who sort of do a lot more of this with sort of
that sounds
TV shows, could be sort of kids shows that are being translated with foreign dub for the new sort of target country. And it's super fun to get into.
Yeah, it sounds like it. When we originally planned on having you as a guest, we learned that you've done recording work for Disney, like you just mentioned, Netflix, Apple TV, Coca-Cola, Starbucks, Fanta, Nestlé, the BBC, Microsoft, Samsung, and a whole bunch more.
Bunch.
That's a pretty impressive list, Henry, by anyone's standards. But I'm just kind of curious. Tell us who was the most challenging to work with, and what exactly did you do for them?
The most challenging. I don't know if I could pick someone out, and actually, I don't know. I think I couldn't name an actual brand or company.
Right.
But to be fair, I haven't really run into anyone that's been, or, a brand that have been super, super hard work. What does occur from time to time that can be tough is a lot of these recording sessions, the client will be on the session as well, usually via Zoom or Teams. And every now and again, there's a classic scenario where, sometimes we'll have sort of 6, 7, sometimes 8 sort of members from the client side on the Zoom call, just listening in to this voiceover artist who's recording. And, a few of them won't say anything at all. And a few of them from the client side, sometimes it's, you've got a member, say we're recording for Fanta. There'll be, a Fanta rep from Spain. It could be a Fanta rep from London. Then you've got maybe a couple of members from the creative agency who are putting the commercial together. Mm-hmm. But what has happened sometimes is there'll often be sort of one person from the client side on the Zoom who is there connected, and they don't say a word for the whole duration of the recording session. They're just kind of there. Say we record for an hour, and we'll do the whole script, and everyone else has kind of signed it off. And then so get to the end. Okay, everyone happy. And this one person will then just unmute themselves and say, actually, can you play it all back for me? Because I'm not sure about this line and this line and this line thing. Oh my goodness. We just spent an hour recording this whole script. And then,
and they wait till the very end to make the comments to re-record.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. And that's happened on more than one occasion for some reason. Yeah.
See, that would be super frustrating, because you're like, you have moved on from it, so you're thinking it's cool and everybody's happy with it. And then to kind of reimagine the whole conversation that you're recording, God, that's so frustrating, really.
Well, especially when everybody's tipping their glasses of champagne and saying, oh, God, this is great.
So
you did such a great job, Henry. We're so excited. Everybody's happy as could be. It sounded great. And then somebody comes in and rains on the parade.
Yeah. Hold on, Henry. Yeah. Let's talk about this, right? Oh, no. No.
Yeah. So I think we've had to sort of reschedule the sessions sometimes. But yeah, that'd probably be the biggest challenge, I'd say. Frustrating one, but
it sounds like
generally, sessions tend to be really controlled and run smoothly, and
I could see that.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
That would be frustrating, but thank God that doesn't happen too often. Hopefully,
yeah. It is. It is rare.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to move on to my next question, and that is, when we see or hear a commercial, or for that matter, even watch a movie, we almost always take the audio for granted. But I'm sure a lot goes into making the audio that we are not aware of. Share with us a little bit about your process for doing this.
Yeah, sure. So, my process is just, I'm just one cog in a whole fleet of cogs. You've got post-production houses putting commercials or documentaries together with a whole load of other stuff. But for me, say it's a voiceover for a commercial, for a TV commercial.
Right.
Depending on where the voiceover artist is. 'Cause I do a lot of foreign voiceover artist recording for commercials. So I actually don't do too much at the moment that is in English. So I'm doing a lot of European commercials. So I'll usually connect with the voiceover artist wherever they are. Let's say we're doing a German commercial. The voiceover artist will be usually at their sort of home studio, in their home booth.
Right.
I'll connect with them remotely, sort of various pieces of software that allow you to do this now. I tend to use a great program that's really popular on the continent over here called Session Link Pro. And I can connect with a talent in super pristine quality, like mega low latency. And it's as if the talent is just in a booth next to my studio. It's so great. And I have their audio feed coming straight into Pro Tools, to my system. And so the client will usually be on Zoom as well. So I'll sort of have their audio routed through Pro Tools as well. So everyone can communicate, hear what's going on. I say if it's a commercial or anything to picture, I'll have the picture, the video on a separate screen, on a separate monitor, which will be shared with the client as well. So when it comes to voicing and recording the voice for said commercial,
right,
I can sync it to picture there and then when the client's on the line, and we can make any edits in session. If the client wants to hear various takes back, I can do that. And just sync everything to picture once we've got a sort of selected tone of voice, and they can see and hear their commercial sort of come to life there and then, really. It's an amazing way of working.
I think it's amazing that you traditionally, this has always been done in a studio somewhere. Everybody shows up to the studio. The voiceover person goes into the booth. They start recording it. Everybody's hanging around the engineer. They're making adjustments, and they go, yeah, that's great. And everybody leaves. You're doing this all virtually. And I guess, and successfully virtually. Is this the way things are going to be from here on out? Do you see a time when people are going to actually go back to the studio?
I think it's really tough because I think the technology is there, the way of working, this kind of new workflow post-COVID is there, but I think there's, for a long time yet, there's still going to be a huge element of sort of voiceover and ADR recording that still goes on in studio. I mean, a lot of city studios have obviously invested huge amounts of money in, going way back into their premises, and it's not so easy to suddenly drop that and go completely remote. But I think
I didn't even think about
there's
that.
also
that's true.
There's in LA, there's some major sound
studios.
Recording studios where they bring talent in from all over the world, and they all show up there.
So true.
Yeah. I think there's also a big element of, when it comes to TV sort of documentaries and that sort of thing, a lot of that stuff is voiced by TV presenters and actors who maybe don't necessarily have their own home studio, because primarily they're on screen, they're actors or presenters, whereas those who are voiceover artists by profession, they're going to have their own home setup. So, actors, it's so easy for them to kind of still go into London, do their thing in the city, go to these sort of physical studios, and that's the way they've been doing it. That's the way the industry still kind of works for that side of things. But, when we're talking about explainer videos, commercials, and that sort of thing, then voiceover artists recording from home, it's just kind of the way forward for them. And again, I'm sure we're going to mention this quite a few times, like post-COVID, I think so many voiceover artists, if they didn't have good home setups pre-COVID, I've spoken to so many that, like during that time, they kind of really thought, okay, I need to get myself sorted. And they've really invested in sort of improving their home recording setups.
The voiceover people that we've talked to, they all have home studios now.
Yeah, now they do.
And especially the ones that read books, that do the books.
Of course.
They're doing all of those from home. And in fact, they're even doing their own editing. They go in, make their own corrections, and then they just deliver the finished product. It's kind of interesting.
It's kind of cool when you can do that.
What I find fascinating is you're also watching a video image and you're pairing the audio to what you're seeing in video. And then I assume you're making all the corrections so it sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, working with picture, there's sort of two sides to it. There's, again, with a commercial that maybe isn't lip synced, it's just, voicing to moving images. We'll usually record that wild. So we'll just record it on its own, just make sure that we're getting the right tone of voice and that it's within a specified time frame. And then we'll sort of sync it up to picture afterwards. So it's my job to make sure that when we're getting that wild take or those wild takes, that, if it's a 30-second commercial, I've got to make sure that the wild take is within 30 seconds and that there are certain pauses in the right place, because then it's a case of, taking it to just sliding it into the picture and checking that we're matching the time code and hitting the right frames. And then when it comes to ADR, automated dialogue replacement for feature films, where you're replacing sort of on-set recorded dialogue or adding additional sounds, that becomes even more tricky, because then you really are looking at lip syncing, and it's a whole different ball game, but one that's, again, super fun to do.
I can imagine. It's going to be interesting to see how our listeners, there's going to be the techie people that listen to our podcast are going to be really excited about the things that you're sharing. And they're going to probably reach out to you and pick your brain, is my guess. But I want to kind of get into you personally, your personal creativity, how you think and live creatively. We see a lot of challenges take place with COVID, like you mentioned before. And has this been a really good creative experience for you, working in your own studio, in your own home, but yet you're connecting to people from all over the world? How has that affected you creatively?
It's been a pretty amazing journey. I mean, I actually only went freelance last October. Before that, I was studio manager and head engineer at a local studio here in Kent. And so, I was there almost 8 years.
So for a while.
And sort of, kind of that built up. And come October, my partner and I were expecting our daughter, she was born early November. So that was coming up. And I think where I was at the studio, I think it, like a lot of things, I think after a certain period of time, it had run its course, and it was time for a fresh start. And it all just seemed to make sense around that time. And the way my partner's sort of work hours kind of work out for her, and the way that my work can be, I can be pretty flexible. So it just kind of worked perfectly. The timing was great, I think, to make that transition last fall. And I just think it's been the best decision that I could have ever made. It's been a bit of a weight off my shoulders. And I just feel so much more free. And, I think I've always been creatively independent.
Mm-hmm.
And this way of working allows me to still be at home with my young family. And, I've seen my daughter grow up every day for the last 8 months, and it's just been incredible. Whilst during that time, I've just worked super hard to work on sort of past working relationships,
mm-hmm.
build new working relationships, and so many amazing sort of connections have been made, in the last 8 months or so, and
mm-hmm. and
lots of new doors have opened in the audio world, and I'm so fortunate and really pleased at sort of where I'm able to work.
Well, you're in the right place at the right time, doing the thing that you're obviously passionate about.
Right.
So
it's nice that you can watch your daughter grow, though, and you have that flexibility.
Yeah, we were able to do that.
Yeah, you were able to do that, and so was I.
Yeah.
So that was cool. Well, our listeners are always interested in how they can stay focused and live more creatively. What advice would you give to them, Henry?
I think a lot of it comes down to passion, but I think it's another level of passion to be able to step into that kind of more creative way of life. It's when families come along and that sort of thing, it inevitably gets a little trickier to live that way, I think, mm-hmm. for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I mean, all I can kind of go on is my experience, really. And there's just a whole nother level of passion that just naturally drives me. And I can't help but kind of work super hard at what I do because I love doing it. There's no real sort of tedious part of what I do, even if I'm having to, constantly reply to emails or mm-hmm. source quotes for people or source voice talent or anything like that. It's super fun. But yeah, I think it all just comes from a really passionate place that I just hope sort of everyone at some point can find that in themselves and tap into that. I think I had that from a really young age. For me, it was music. I'm a musician as well, and just grew up loving music, and it was my life, and sort of still is. And even in high school, in secondary school, mm-hmm. there were so many. I mean, I wouldn't say that I was a bad kid or a troublemaker or anything like that, but there were times when I would ditch classes and I would just go to the music room and just hang out there. It's just where I felt I needed to be. And that's where I was comfortable. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I mean, well, everyone has to do things they don't like, but
at least you were being constructive when you ditched, though.
Yeah,
you
true.
Went to the music room to play music and listen and be cool
instead of going buying candy bars.
Well, yeah, or doing other things that were not cool. So good for you. Actually, that's not a bad thing.
Actually, we never asked you this question, but so were you a musician?
Well, I still play. I still play. It's not full time, but I play professionally. So originally, I grew up playing guitar from when I was probably 7 years old, and played guitar a lot through my teens, all the time, basically. And sort of late teens, I actually decided to teach myself to play double bass. big upright bass. And yeah, so I just bought myself a cheap double bass on eBay and just taught myself. And I sort of upgraded my bass a few years later, and that's what I still play. So yeah, every month I'm still playing.
In what style? We had a jazz guitarist on who's incredible, and we actually we played some of his music on the podcast. But what was your style of playing?
So a lot of what I play at the moment is a real sort of eclectic mix of sort of jazz, swing with some rock and roll thrown in there, and
nice.
Sort of mash it up with some sort of movie themes. So we'll throw sort of Bond theme and Mission Impossible theme and Pink Panther in there, just to kind of keep everyone on their toes a little bit, and it keeps me on my toes because we don't really have any set structure to a lot of the stuff we do. We just kind of.
Henry, are you recording this? And I mean, do you offer it as background music, or do you use this music in some of the productions that you do for your clients? Do they drop your music in the background?
I don't. I mean, I play with a guy called Steve Spall, who is a great guitar player, phenomenal guitar player and singer here, and he's been doing his thing for years now. So yeah, sometimes we'll play just as a two-piece. It's all sort of covers, but there's some obscure sort of Latin stuff in there. Yeah, so we'll just kind of do our thing. Sometimes we'll play as a bigger band. We'll get some drums and horns in, depending on what the gig is.
What I'd like to know, everybody always wants to know this, is how do you stay motivated to get yourself in the studio to make things happen when you really don't feel like it?
You know what? I don't know if I've ever really, certainly in what I do now, I don't think I've had any moments where I've been significantly sort of not motivated. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there have been any times where I've not felt like doing, recording some voiceover. I'm meeting so many great people along this journey, and it's often different voices a lot of the time. And even when you're recording the same voice, sometimes you haven't worked with them for a little while. So you just have a catch up, and I don't know if there's been any sort of significant moments where I've needed to sort of remotivate myself.
I think Angie and I feel, we feel the same.
Yeah, I think we agree with that.
Because we like what we're doing, so we get excited. It's also really interesting to interview people like you, somebody that's in another part of the world and is living their life and with their family and following their
excited about their life.
Yeah, excited about their life and their creativity journey, their creative journey, and all that. That's a joy for us, and I can see you reconnecting with VO people that you had worked with in the past, and you're going, "Hey, how's it doing? What's up? Do you have any kids?" All that kind of stuff. Just the usual chat. Yeah. That sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah. It's a boring answer, I'm afraid, but I'm working like you guys. I'm working with audio. I'm at home.
Right.
I'm really lucky to be able to do that.
Hey, could you give a short answer on how people could improve recording their voice?
A short answer: treat your space.
Good one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, you can have, the most expensive microphones. You can have like super expensive sort of doors and audio interfaces, but if you've got a room with huge flat sort of open surfaces where sound can just sort of bounce around, it's just not conducive to a good good vocal recording. So treat those spaces, get some audio.
We certainly did.
Acoustic treatment in there.
That was the first thing we did.
Listen to how you sound, before you jump in.
I would walk into this room and whistle, and I could hear it bouncing off of every wall and echoing. And then we have done one. We're probably going to do another YouTube video showing our space and how we did their sound treating. But that's a great answer.
I love that answer.
Because, you see so many people will do audio, and audio is probably the most important thing. It's more important than the visual because you have to listen to it, And if it doesn't, nobody wants to listen to bad audio. They'll put up with bad video. Mm-hmm. But they won't put up with bad audio.
Well, it's hard when you can't understand someone or it's so echoey that they just sound bizarre.
Yeah, and you want to know what they're saying.
And it's really noticeable. I mean, I don't know if you had it over there, but I mean, it was obviously a really difficult time, but at the beginning of COVID, a lot of people were having to record from home still.
Right.
But I think, like we sort of touched upon earlier, for actors and TV presenters who are used to going into, traveling into the city to go into a studio, that kind of all shut down for some time. But they still had to do they still had sort of, shows to put their voice to. And I can remember sort of hearing their sort of voiceover on certain programs that came out around that time. Mm-hmm. And you can hear the echo in the room. That you can hear they've obviously recorded that voiceover for that program in their living room. And so I don't know if you guys noticed that at all.
Well, we definitely had that. What was interesting, Henry, is we have spoken to a few people that were actors, and since COVID came around, they could not go to auditions, so they had to audition from home, of course, but they had to build like a mini studio to record themselves, because if they didn't look good, if they didn't sound good, then the casting director would just simply throw out their audition, even though maybe they read, fantastically. They would not get the part, or they would not get the callback because the quality of their video and their audio was terrible. So it's kind of interesting the direction it's gone.
Well,
it makes such a difference.
Yeah, especially with everybody doing Zoom calls and business Zoom calls. I mean, people really kind of hate those, but it's terrible when you have to sit there and watch somebody who's recording himself with his laptop and then has stuff in the background that's growing out of their head like a plant, and their audio is bouncing all over,
video stinks,
right? And there's no lighting on them, and they're sweaty.
I think pay attention to what you're doing, and like try to improve the lighting and make sure that you're not echoing. Like, I love what you said, about treating your environment. That was so, yes.
Yeah, you could treat it not 100%. Only for audio, but you could also treat it visually, too, if you're video recording yourself.
Absolutely.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I think that we would like to know, what do you plan on accomplishing in the next 2 years?
So I think, for me, I would love to do more work on some TV programs and some documentaries and work on some remote ADR for feature films. It's all sort of bits and pieces that I've done quite a lot of work on in the past. But since going freelance, I'm obviously specializing in some other areas, but
right.
With the audio world, there's so many different avenues that you can very easily sort of find yourself sort of open to. So yeah, I'd love to do more work on some sort of documentaries and some movies. That'd be really fun.
Okay.
But who knows? We'll just
go with the flow too. See what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
Yeah, totally. See what happens, and keep sort of making connections and opening doors and see what comes around.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'm looking at my time code and I need to ask you this question because we're getting a little short on time. But this is the question we ask everybody that is on the podcast. And that is if you could sit on a park bench and chat with anyone from the past, who would it be?
For me, I would probably say John Lennon.
Oh,
nice.
I'm a huge Beatles nut. I grew up on the Beatles. I was obsessed from when I was probably like 7 years old. And just knowing how creative John was, certainly, as a youngster and as a teen growing up, I think he going through school again, he just wanted to be creative. He didn't want to, I think he was maybe a bit more stubborn than I was.
I think that's a great answer.
It's a wonderful answer.
And I noticed your picture on Instagram, your hair is cut rather short. So apparently that's one trend the Beatles started that you're not following.
Yeah. John Lennon, that would be, definitely
unfortunately,
a great conversation.
That's a perfect person to choose.
Absolutely.
It's time for us to wrap this up. And Henry, you obviously are very creative, and I hope people could pick up on some of the creative things that you do, and Angie will share where people can learn more about you. And we, to be perfectly honest, we kind of had you on the show for selfish reasons because we always like talking audio.
Oh, definitely.
And I probably have a gazillion more questions for you at some point. But I think that there's a lot of people that are going to be very interested in hearing your creative journey, which is kind of a fascinating one. And we really appreciate you being our guest.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think people really don't understand the dynamics of film and TV voiceover dubbing. So thank you for sharing that with us. It's been really interesting hearing all the background of what goes on. So thank you for being with us today.
Hey, no worries. My absolute pleasure. It's been so nice to chat with you. I just want to thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. You're very welcome. And now I need to let everyone know, if you'd like to know more about Henry Willard, we will have links for him under the show guest tab on ThoughtRowPodcast.com, so everyone can learn more about him. And please connect with him on social media and check out his website.
And if you need voiceover dubbing work for your movie that you're producing, please contact him.
Absolutely. Also, if you're enjoying our podcast, both Rod and I would really appreciate you buying us a cup of coffee. Just go to ThoughtRow.com, scroll down a bit, and you can find that link right on our website on the homepage.
It's really easy to do, by the way.
Yes, it is.
And all the money we receive goes to our production costs.
Yep.
And primarily because we want to keep our show commercial free, and we want to continue to bring you the best quality content with great guests.
That's right. Thank you for listening to Thought Row Podcast.
I'm really glad you tuned in today. We hope you enjoyed the thoughts and ideas we shared with you.
We post a new podcast every week, so remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. So it's bye for now from my husband Rod and I, wishing